Chapter 20 of The Grell Mystery. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Christine Blashford. The Grell Mystery by Frank Froest. Chapter 20. Heldon Foyle had been prepared to take any risk rather than allow the Princess Petrovska to escape him again. There was nothing against her but suspicion. It was for him to find evidence that might link her with the crime. It is in such things that the detective of actuality differs from the detective of fiction. The detective of fiction acts on moral certainties which would get the detective of real life into bad trouble. To arrest the princess was out of the question. Even to detain her might make matters awkward. Yet the superintendent had made up his mind to afford Wills, the butler, a sight of her at all costs. If Wills identified her, it would be at least another link in the chain of evidence that was being forged. He carried the butler in a taxicab with him to the nearest corner to the Duke of Burghley's house. A well-groomed man sauntered up to them and shook hands warmly with Foyle. "She has not come out yet," he said. "Good," exclaimed Foyle. "Come on, Wills. You have a good look at this woman when she does come out, and stoop down and tie your shoelace if she's anything like the woman who visited Robert Grell on the night of the murder. Be careful now. Don't make any mistakes. If you identify her, you'll probably have to swear to her in court." "But I never saw her face," complained Wills helplessly. "I told you I was not certain I'd know her again." He was palpably nervous and unwilling to play the prominent part that had been assigned to him. Foyle laughed reassuringly. "Never mind. You have a look at her, old chap. You never know in these cases. You may remember her when you see her. Everyone walks differently, and you may spot her by that. It won't do any harm if you don't succeed." He led Wills to a spot a few paces away from the house, but out of view of anyone looking from the windows, and gave him instructions to remain where he was. He himself returned to the corner where Taylor, the detective inspector who had greeted them when they drove up, was waiting. The other end of that side of the square was guarded by one of Taylor's assistants. Lola was trapped, if Foyle wished her to be trapped. He beckoned to a uniformed constable who was pacing the other side of the road. The man nodded, detectives whatever their rank are never saluted, and took up his position a few paces away. They had not long to wait. A taxicab whizzed up to the house, evidently summoned by telephone. Wills was staring as though fascinated at the slim, erect figure of the woman outlined on the steps of the house. He half stooped, then straightened himself up again. The superintendent muttered an oath under his breath and nodded to the loitering policeman. The constable immediately sprang into the roadway with arm outstretched, and the cab, which was just gathering way, was pulled up with a jerk. The blue uniform is more useful in some cases than the inconspicuous mufti of the C.I.D. "Get hold of Wills and bring him after us to Malchester Row Police Station," and opening the door, he stepped within as the driver dropped in the clutch. The princess had half risen and gave a little cry of dismay at the intrusion. With grim, set face, the detective adjusted his tall form to the limits of the cab and sat down beside her. His hand encircled her wrist and he forced her back to the seat. "I shouldn't try to open the door if I were you," he said quietly. "You might fall out." The woman dropped back and did some quick thinking. She had no difficulty in guessing who Foyle was, and she could scarcely have failed to see the staring figure of the butler as she left the Duke of Burghley's house. She fenced for time, doing the astonished, outraged, half-frightened innocent to perfection. "What does this mean? How dare you molest me? Where are you taking me?" The detective smiled easily as he answered in the formal words of C.I.D. custom. "I am a police officer, perhaps I needn't tell you that, and I am taking you to Malchester Row Police Station." "To arrest me? You would dare? Do you know I am the Princess Petrovska? There is some mistake. I shall appeal to the Russian ambassador. What do you say I have done? I am a friend of Lady Eileen Meredith, the daughter of the Duke of Burghley. She will tell you I have only just left her. You are confusing me with someone else." It was admirably done. The mixture of indignation and haughtiness might have imposed upon some people, and the threat of appeal to the Russian ambassador had been very adroit. Heldon Foyle merely nodded. "This is not arrest," he replied. "It is not even detention, unless you force me to it. I am inviting you to accompany me to give an account of your movements on the night that Harry Goldenburg was murdered. I will call your bluff, Lola, and we will call at the ambassador's if you like." She made a gesture with one hand, as of a fencer acknowledging a hit, and turning her head, smiled sweetly into his face. Nevertheless, in spite of everything, she felt a little nervous. She had gone to see Eileen with her eyes not fully open to the risk she ran. Deftly used, newspapers have their uses. In supplying the story of the murder to the pressmen, Foyle had omitted all mention of the finding of the miniature. The woman had not known that Scotland Yard had a portrait of her, and had deemed it unlikely that she would be recognised by the watchers of the house. Although she had lived by her wits in many quarters of the world, she had hitherto avoided trouble with the police in England. She wondered how much Foyle knew. It was evidently of no use trying to impress him with the importance of her rank and connections. Princesses are cheap in Russia. "You are Mr. Heldon Foyle, of course," she said. "I have heard that you are very clever." I don't see what I can have had to do with the murder, even if I am Lola Rochelle, which I admit." "We shall see. Can you prove where you were between 10 o'clock, when you left the Palatial Hotel, and midnight on that date?" She laughed merrily. "You are not so clever as I thought," she exclaimed. "Do you think that I'm a murderess? I went straight to an hotel near Charing Cross, the Splendid, and caught the 9 o'clock boat train to Paris. It is easily proved." Foyle shifted to the seat opposite so that he could see her face more easily. "Then you don't deny that you visited Grosvenor Gardens that night, that you were admitted by Ivan Abramovitch, Grell's valet, and taken to his study?" "Of course I do," she retorted laughingly. "If that's all you've got to go upon, you may as well let me go now." "Very well, we shall see," he answered. The cab stopped at Malchester Row Police Station. End of chapter 20.